Hello and welcome back to my class. This is going to be part 2 of our introductory lesson on Unit 3, which is going to be Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. And last time we got to talk a lot about the actual man, the actual human in history who was Julius Caesar, right? And so he's this larger than life guy, this guy who's known for saying cool stuff like I came, I saw, I conquered, the die is cast, I crossed the Rubicon, stuff like that, right? Larger than life sort of character, man, really one of the most influential characters, quite possibly in all of Western history, at least, right? So, last time we ended up talking about, excuse me, last time we ended up talking about just that historical context, but now I want to talk to you about the play because the play begins with some citizens in support of Caesar and others in opposition. Okay, so you have the commoners and then you have the political elite or the educated. All right, and so the ones who are supporting Caesar are the plebeians, and these are the commoners, right? So if you've ever heard someone say, you pleb, you plebe, that's what they're talking about. Plebeian, you're common. All right. Whereas the patricians, who are the educated political elite, the ones who can vote, those are patricians, all right? So Rome has up until this point been a republic with elected officials to represent the interests of Rome, okay? And so up until this point, we have been a republican, or sorry, not republican, but up until this point, we have been a republic here in Rome, and people appoint their leaders, even to the point to where there are famous men in Roman history who go protect Rome with an army, come back, are completely capable of taking over the entire city or taking over the entire territory with their army, but instead they say, no, I will give the army back to Rome. I have done my service. Okay? Well, that's not what Caesar did. He did the exact opposite. He goes, he takes the army, and then he conquers Rome, okay? So whenever he gets back, there are several patricians, and these are all senators, okay? You have your very first guy right here, and this is Brutus. And this is one of Caesar's best friends, okay? He believes that he must act against Caesar for the good of Rome. He only has the most noble possible, the most noble possible intentions at heart, okay? And he's noble, honorable, a little bit naive, and a little bit easily manipulated, okay? And Brutus is our main character, okay? It's not actually Julius Caesar. Spoiler alert. Julius Caesar dies in the third act. Brutus is who we follow, and you know that whenever the action of the story, whenever the conflict of the story follows one person, you know that that person is your protagonist, right? So Brutus is our protagonist. Casca and Cassius are both members of the Senate, and they're also the initial they're also the initial guys who are part of this conspiracy, okay? Casca hates the ordinary citizens of Rome. He sees them as the mob. He sees them as foolish. He sees them as easily manipulated, and he wants, it's funny because, like, even as much as he hates the common people of Rome, he wants to be admired by them. Not Julius Caesar. He wants to be admired by the people of Rome, not him. Okay. And so Casca, like, I've always described Casca as like the mean girl. Casca is like the one who is sitting there, and like whenever you're watching the movie, and he's the one that's like, you can't sit with us. All right, like that's Casca. All right, super sassy, really fun character. If I don't know, if I was to play one of the characters, I would really have fun playing Casca in the play. All right, Cassius is a greedy and jealous man who wants to take drastic measures to keep Caesar from winning any more power and to take away the power that Caesar previously had, including the power to, breathe and live. Cassius is the one whose idea it is that it's like, hey, we should probably just kill this guy, right? Here's the thing. Cassius is not always fully greedy. Cassius is a little bit more complex, and you cannot just reduce everything that Cassius does to simply just being like, oh, well, he's just a jerk. Okay? Casca, kind of just a jerk. Cassius, jerk, yeah, but man, sometimes I wonder if like his head isn't in the right place. But he's definitely envious. What we do know is that he's definitely envious of Caesar. Okay, we do know that like he does feel threat. At the very least, he's threatened by Caesar. Maybe not jealous of him, but at the very least, threatened by him. So these are your three main conspirators here, right? Now we come into the middle of this. Come into the middle of this play, and there's this feast, and there is a party that's going on, and man, I could not make this thing up. All right, it's called Lupercal, and the reason why it's called Lupercal is because Lupercal is basically the Roman god of fertility. Okay, and it's Lupercal who is the patron of Rome. Okay, that is the god of Rome, because what ancient mythology, what Roman mythology says, and is this true? No, it's a myth. Okay, they just made up this myth so that it would sound cool, and honestly, it sounds just about as cool as it does weird. So I'll just leave that with you. Okay, so like you've got Romulus and Remus, and these are said to be the founders of Rome. Okay, they were born to this king, and the uncle wanted to kill them because he wanted to be king, and so they were to be killed by their uncle. And so he tells the servants to go, and he tells and like you guys have heard these stories, right? Like he goes and he tells the servants to go and kill these babies, and the servant has pity on them. And so like Moses style, the servants set down the the two babies, Romulus and Remus. They set them in the river Tiber, and they are eventually taken in by a she wolf on the 7 hills of Rome. That's right, you heard me. They were raised by wolves, okay? Why? Because, again, we're Roman, and we're cool like that, all right? We want to make it sound as, like, we're just as the neatest of the neat, all right? So, in order to celebrate Romulus and Remus, the mercy of Lupercal, the god of fertility, and the mercy of this she-wolf, who supposedly raised Romulus and Remus, the Romans would sacrifice goats and a dog. Okay, the goat's blood would be smeared on the foreheads of 2 young men and then wiped off with wool dipped in milk. And why, you might ask, all of these things? Well, because milk and blood and sacrifice are all basically elements of vitality, symbolically, right? And so they're basically taking like, and they're taking like 2 of their most they're taking like 2 of their most powerful, most athletic men, right? And so like 2 of their most vital men inside of the entire city. And so like they're basically like doubling down on the symbolism, saying, aha, vitality, what we want is life, what we want is fertility, what we want is a good harvest season, what we want is lots of babies, right? And so then the young men go around in goatskin underwear, and they run around the city striking women with whips made out of goatskin. I can't make it up, you know? Like, we sacrifice a goat, we sacrifice a dog, goat blood on the forehead, wipe it down with milk, put on your underwear, and then run around the city twice, hitting as many women as you possibly can with a goat whip. I don't know, man. Like, I think that's where you get like the phrase "when in Rome." I don't know. Like, it was believed that pregnant women would have an easier labor, and infertile women could suddenly become magically fertile if they were struck by this goat skin. In fact, there's even this point where Caesar goes over to one of his buddies. His name is Mark Antony. He says, "Antony, you're running in the race, right?" And Antony's like, "I am." And he's like, "Hey, will you make sure to run by my wife and make sure that you hit her with goat skin?" He's like, because Calpurnia has not given me any children yet, and so if you'll go ahead and if you smack her with the goat skin whenever you're making your rounds, that would be really cool, my guy. And what Calpurnia thought about that, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe she was like, could be cooler if you didn't, or maybe she was like, no, yeah, like sure, I believe in all of these myths, okay? But you'll just notice that there's like lots of connection to fertility. A lot of it has to do with sex. A lot of it has to do with a good harvest season, because this is all going on in February. Spring is right around the corner, and so they're in this preparation for March, and they're saying like they want all of the trees to bloom. They want all of the grapes to get. They want all of the grapes to grow and all of that kind of stuff, right? So February actually means to purify in the Latin, and it actually probably has quite a few connections with Saint Valentine's Day. Okay, so during this feast and the subsequent race, this is whenever like everyone's going and watching Mark Antony hit people with goat whips, and that's whenever Cassius and Brutus get to talking about killing Caesar. All right. Oh, and again, just to kind of like show you how like weird once again, this is a depiction of the she-wolf on the seven hills of Rome, and these are the children Romulus and Remus who are being raised by this she-wolf. All right, so that's what the Feast of Lupercal is about. Uh, Around this time, Caesar is warned multiple times by a soothsayer to beware the Ides of March. Which basically the Ides just mean the middle. So like the middle of March is March 15th. But Caesar doesn't put much stock in things. Okay, so I want you guys to kind of notice that oftentimes these warnings come in the form of writing or poetry or fortune telling, right? And there is this kind of this neat interplay that Shakespeare does whenever he has these figures. He has Brutus, Cassius, he has Casca, he has Caesar, he has Mark Antony, and they're all just kind of like aware that it's like the stuff that they're doing is history making, right? I think that we've kind of had a history making year this year ourselves, haven't we? And haven't you guys kind of felt this like haven't you guys kind of felt this weight of history being made even as you're going through it? Like, you know that, like, even as you're sitting there and even as you're experiencing it, you know this is going to be a big deal for years and years and years to come. And it's like these politicians are going around and like they see politics as the stage upon which they are performing, right? And so they're performing this grand play. They're kind of like they kind of like realize that they're on the grand stage of history. Okay, but ironically enough, they don't pay any attention to the poets or the writers, and they don't pay attention to the artists, and they don't pay attention to any of the people that are commenting on what is going on, people that could have helped them. All right. And so I think Shakespeare is kind of making a dig here to where he's like, hey, listen, you guys who are all just about politics and government and policy and things like that, art is for you. Writing is for you. The play is for you. You should be paying attention to your history. You should be paying attention to what the artists have to say, because more often than not, art will reflect real life, but real life also reflects art, right? And so it's Shakespeare kind of pointing out to the politicians of his own time, saying, hey, look at what happened whenever the comments of the artists and the comments of poets and the comments of all of these people ended up not being heeded, whenever their warnings were not paid attention to. And so he's kind of making that point, and he's making that point to us even today. Now, well, you guys know that a tragic figure or hero is one who has a character flaw which causes them to act poorly or to make poor decisions resulting in their own downfall. And so every Shakespearean tragedy has a tragic hero, okay? And in fact, in Julius Caesar, we have several tragic heroes. Caesar is a tragic hero, but he's not the primary tragic hero. Cassius is tragic. Casca, no, not as much. But you have several characters that are tragic in their own rights, right? That they're not necessarily followed like we follow Brutus, okay? But they each, like, that's one of the things that you need to really key into is you need to key into what are the flaws of these characters? What are their shortcomings? What are the things that they don't really have it all together on just yet, okay? And the most important one to pay attention to is Brutus, who is known for his honor. He's known for his high moral principles. He is the protagonist of this play, and yet he is condemned in history as being one of the greatest traitors in all of history, right? Like in Dante's Inferno, there's like two dudes who are being gnawed on the dragon Satan at the 9th level of hell. One of those is Judas Iscariot, who betrayed Jesus, and the other is Brutus, who betrayed Caesar. Okay, so Shakespeare takes an interesting take by actually making him a really highly morally principled character. And the question is how could such a guy fall into the temptations of killing his best friend? Well, that's what we're going to find out. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this lesson. Again, there's still so much that I could say. This will be on a short quiz that you guys will be taking here soon, and so I would recommend that you guys do fill out your notes. Those are not for a grade, but do fill out your notes so that you can study them and so that you can follow along, so that you can fully understand what's actually going on in the play. Right? I only tell you all of these things so that you can understand what's happening better, so that you can get the big ideas of really what Shakespeare is trying to say and really apply it to, hey, this is important to us in real life, even today, right? Like, we are contemporaries, not with Shakespeare, but he has things to say in our contemporary context. Okay? So be paying attention to that, be keying into that, be ready for that quiz, all right? And be keeping and as we go forward, make sure that you're keeping up with your study guide, and make sure that you're keeping up with your vocabulary, your discussion questions, and of course your quizzes, all right? You guys are awesome. I have no doubt that you guys are going to do amazing in the following weeks. Keep up the great work. You guys are doing great, and don't stop learning, my brilliant, brilliant students.